So we'll start with the 2H pencil, and as you recall from an earlier video, the thing you want to do is you want to work very lightly and in very tiny circles. And you can do the entire 2H or HB, whichever you're working with, do the whole 3 sections and doing the 10% value, using a 2H with a very light hand, and draw in this entire 3-section box. Now it's really important that you use little circles and don't get into a routine where you're drawing a row and a row and a row, because it'll show up as a row. You want this to be quite random, working all different parts at the same time, slightly overlapping these little circles so that they become one even tone. And as you get to an edge, you want to turn your page or turn your pencil and work with the tip of the pencil towards the edge of that shape. Because if you back into it, you're going to get a rough edge and it's not going to be nice and clean. You'll notice that I am not seeing any pencil strokes. You want this to be a nice even tone. If you end up with something where you have a little white space showing, you have to go back in and you have to fill in that space. The trick to doing that is to take your pencil and just hold it vertically and just very gently fill in a space that might have been left too light. Now, if you feel a section has gotten a little too dark in the first application, you can always go in with your kneaded eraser and gently lift out a little bit of the value of the graphite. And if you need to turn your board in order to work, I'm not doing so because I'm doing this as a video so that you can see what I'm doing. But in effect, you can turn the drawing paper so you can get your edges. Now again, I'm doing this whole thing with the very lightest shade I can get with the 2H pencil. And this should match my 10% value on my value scale, which is right here. If I squint at it, the two values seem to match. So this is my 10% right here. So we almost have this entire 3 blocks filled in. You can turn your page if you need to in order to get to an edge with your pencil point. And remember that if you have to, you can always get that pencil sharp again in order to get real control over the pencil. So at this point, we have this entire row of 3 segments filled in. Now, because the 2H pencil, as I mentioned before, will not go to, if I look at my value scale, will not go to 100% gray, you're going to have to figure out how far to go with the 2H. And it will require several layers of graphite working with the same pressure, just building and building and building. In order to find the 50, I think it's very important to do the maximum on the darkest value first, because that way you'll know where that darkest value falls on the 10-step value scale, and you'll be able to determine how dark to make the 50% once that has been completed. So I'm going to start adding additional layers to this 100% area. And just so you don't forget, this is 10%, This is 50%, and this is 100%. Just don't confuse this 100% with this 100%. The 2H graphite pencil will not go to this darkness. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to put another layer of value on. And as you put these additional layers on, you want to fill that entire space and make sure that the layer that you've put down is nice and even, that you're not getting variations in the value. You want these layers to go on as a single value, not as multiple values. This is not a continuous value exercise. Now you can see, because of the paper, I ended up with a light area, so turn your pencil vertically, and using just the tip, you want to touch that area and only darken in where it's light to even it out, and then leave it alone. If you go over the whole area to darken it, what'll happen is you'll just make the whole area darker, but the area that was light will still remain light. It doesn't have the layer underneath. Now you cannot do this in a hurry. This takes a lot of time. So make sure that you give yourself that time during the week. Don't try to get this all done in one day. It's not going to happen. You have a lot to do here. These things take a long time to render. Botanical art is really slow art. It takes time to create something that's lovely. So even though you're just doing exercises here to learn to control this pencil, you absolutely need to do it with a great deal of care and patience. All right, so we have our second layer done here. And now we're going to do layer 3. Same pressure. So that was layer 3. Now we're on to layer 4. Again, same amount of pressure. You're just adding more graphite. Don't try to rush it. Still working with little small circles that overlap. Layer 4 is complete. Now we'll go on to layer 5. Same pressure, more graphite. On to layer 6. Now you may have to apply just the slightest bit more pressure, and that's starting to tell you that this particular pencil is reaching its limit as far as darkness without damaging the paper. We're just about finished. I think maybe I can get another layer out of this, and that will be our last one. And that will give us our 100% for a 2H pencil. So there's my last layer of graphite for the 2H, which gives us what is considered 100% for a 2H pencil. As you can see, it is nowhere near the value of 100% on this value scale. The 70% value on the value scale is probably the closest to the actual graphite 100%. So if we start at, this is 70% here, but it's really 100% for the 2H pencil, we're going to take this now and say, all right, here's your 10%, here's your 100%, and somewhere in between here, 40% is the true value for the 50% here. So we want to try and match this amount of grayness in our 50% box. So that's what we're going to do now. So this is going to give us our second layer of value, and we're going to match it against the 40% on the value scale and see if that's correct. If not, then we put another layer of graphite on here and see if that matches. And we continue to do this until we match the value scale designation. So there is our last layer that we just finished. Check it against the 40%, and here's our 40%, and that's pretty close. So we have our 10%, our 50%, and our 100% for the 2H pencil. Now you're going to be doing this for each one of these boxes. So start with your 10%, go the whole distance. Start with 10%, go the whole distance. Then do your 100%. That way you can gauge where you have to do the 50% mark on your value scale, because it's going to change. So that's how you need to gauge these things in order to get the right relationship of 10%, 50%, 100%.